With a really big growth in people starting to get into running, mainly because they haven't been able to do much else through lockdowns, and it's the most accessible form of physical activity at the moment for a lot of people, I just wanted to take the opportunity today to go through the 5 key things I think are really important. If you're a beginner out there, or you're just getting into running, you're transitioning from, say, cycling and you're going into a running direction now, or maybe even into triathlon, what are some things that you can do to really implement a nice, safe, so you're injury-free, a really effective from a performance perspective, but then also just a fun way of going about your running as well. Here are the things that I think are the most important as you're starting to build into running for the first time. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to the channel. Nick here, talking science of endurance and everything sports science in general. Thanks to everyone who's already been kind enough to hit that big red sub button down below and subscribe to the channel. By supporting the channel and subscribing and keeping notifications on, it really does help the channel grow, because as soon as a video comes up, you're aware of it, you can watch it, you can leave your questions and comments down below. It also helps others then learn off your questions and comments and the discussions that we have down in the comment section also. So really appreciate the support so far. And if you do think anyone that you know might get something out of these videos, hit the share button down below and pass it on to someone you might think would benefit from watching some of the content, or even just getting involved in some of the discussion, jumping in the live stream and asking their question. If you think someone would benefit from that, hit that share button, send them the link, and I would really appreciate you passing the good messages on. In terms of today's video, as I said in the intro, a lot of runners are starting to pop up from seemingly out of nowhere. The running community as a whole is really starting to grow, mainly because through COVID lockdowns, particularly here in Melbourne, running is one of the most accessible, if not the only thing to go outside and do at times. Being restricted in terms of your 5k radius, it's much easier to go out and run within a 5k radius if you're home than it is to go out and do a bike ride without having to ride around the same set of streets again and again and again. Going out for a 5-ish k run, or you can do a 10k circuit, whatever it may be, is more accessible. So we've got a lot more beginners getting into our sport, which is a great thing for the endurance community. We want more people involved in endurance sports because we know the benefits from a health perspective of things like cardiovascular fitness and all of that. The danger with it, though, is that when we have people getting really excited about running, and I've done this myself at times, so I'm guilty of it too, and we all are, is that when we get really excited, we start to see some good weather, we're running in a good location, our friends are running, it's really easy to get caught up with it, and we start to go from 0 to 100 really quickly. And that's where some of the things in terms of injury, but then also you start to get a bit burnt out and you start to dislike it a bit, and we start to lose people through just some negative, thought process when it comes around to how do we build effectively as a beginner. So today I'm going to share the 5 key things that if I was back as a beginner, but I had all the knowledge that I've gained over the last few years in terms of working in the industry, what I've learned through studying a degree in sports science, through my master's in high performance sport, my own sports training, if I had all that knowledge, but I was a beginner runner, what are the 5 key things that I would focus on? That's what we're going to cover today. So yeah, let's kick it off with number 1, which is start progressively. I can't stress this enough. Just build slowly. You don't have to be an amazing marathon runner straight out the gate. Even if it's building up and going, okay, I'm just going to take 6-8 weeks to build from no Ks up to running 5Ks continuously. That's more than enough of a progression to begin with. And that may only be something like 2 to 3 runs per week. Basically going out for your first run might be 20 minutes of total time. So when you start your watch and you stop your watch, you've only been going for 20 minutes, but out of that 20 minutes, you might be running for 5 to 10 minutes of that. You might do some run walk to get started. That's going to, one, teach you a bit of tolerance of training load to begin with, but then also slowly allow you to progress up to running continuously for a period of time. And ideally, when I say 20 minutes, it's because once we get to the 20-minute mark, that's really our ideal stimulus. If we can run continuously for that period of time, we're getting an ideal stimulus in terms of an aerobic adaptation. And then the longer we go beyond that, it's just building upon that aerobic adaptation for our aerobic capacity side of things. So start progressively. Less is typically more in the early stages. You don't have to go out and do a run every single day of the week. You don't necessarily have to run the entire time. You can do run walk. That's a really great way of starting from very low bases of not much running to build that tolerance, get used to the impact on the legs and the stress on the body. Then you can progress a little bit further from there. Part 2 of this, in terms of what's the second thing after building progressively and slowly, is don't just go out and run as hard as possible for as long as possible. Not every run is a race, but as much as we love to be competitive and it is fun to go and push yourself and challenge yourself to go faster and run for longer at that speed, it's at the end of the day, it's not always the best way to go about it. Testing that every now and then and seeing how you go, or if you deliberately go out and go, I'm just going to run 20 minutes as fast as I can, or whatever fast the fastest speed I possibly can and just see how far I cover. These types of things are good every now and then in the program, but it's the type of thing that if you go out and every single run you do, 4 runs a week, 6 runs a week, however many you're doing, if every single run you do is I'm going as hard as fast as I can, I'm potentially racing, you're going to fatigue really, really quickly. And it's going to be hard to back up for that next run. So that's where we get things like more susceptible to getting sick because you get burnt out. The body struggles to recover. We put our body under unnecessary stresses in terms of difficulty to recover from highly fatiguing efforts. You go out and run as hard as you can, basically a threshold run every single day. You're going to be pretty fatigued by the end of the week. So then backing up for other sessions, it's just not a great place to be. So every now and then doing that type of run is okay, but doing it every single run is definitely something I would steer away from. Number 3 is technique is king. And I can't stress this enough. In the early stages of your running, it's okay to get, and when I say the early stages, maybe the first 4, 6, 8 weeks, to get a foundation and understanding of, do I actually like going out and running regularly anyway? Is obviously something you want to be doing to try and work out, is this a type of physical activity I actually enjoy doing? Do I prefer cycling instead? Do I prefer being on a rowing ergometer? Do I prefer doing CrossFit or HIIT-based circuit training in the gym, like an F45 type thing? It doesn't really matter what you like. It's the type of thing, though, that if you work out after 4 to 6 weeks that you really hate running, well, I'd almost say go and find a different type of physical activity to do. But if you do enjoy running, working on your technique and having someone who fully understands how to manipulate your technique in terms of a few simple cues to change some things to get you in a much better position, one from anything, is going to save you from some basic injuries in terms of planting your foot in the right place underneath you to get the best propulsion, but then also to save any ankle, knee or hip troubles, making sure that you're not, so we all sit at desks all day, so being grounded in the shoulders is going to close up in terms of what we can do from a lung capacity thing. If we can open everything up, stand up a little bit taller, you're going to get a little bit more airflow into the lungs. That's going to help you from a performance benefit, but also it's just going to help you from a posture benefit as well. Getting the arms swinging in the correct way, all of these things, working out any imbalances, being able to identify some really quality technique traits is going to help you long term, set you up to be a really quality runner, but also minimize the risk of injury. And if you're looking for a really good resource of that, this is not an ad or a sponsorship by any means, but Paul McKinnon, the Balance Run, I'm going to leave his details down below. Go check him out on social media. If you're based in Melbourne, he is running sessions at the moment, even with the lockdowns, the one-to-ones outdoors at the moment. He's an absolute gun. He's fixed my technique. He's fixed the guys at work technique. I send athletes there. He's unbelievable. But if you're a beginner runner and you're 6 to 8 weeks in, someone like him and seeing some positive improvement in technique early is going to set a really good foundation, as well as the physiology and the actual training side of things, to set you up long term to be quite a successful runner overall. Number 4 is working out your baseline. So once you've got through this initial period, you've worked on technique a little bit, then it's time to start thinking about, well, what is my baseline? Where am I at fitness-wise? So then I have a mark and a measure of where I'm improving from. Establishing a baseline can be really simple. Pick out a circuit. You might want to go and do a 2K time trial, a 5K time trial, whatever suits you in terms of how you want to track your performance. It doesn't really matter. It's just giving you a benchmark or a starting point to go, this is where I was 8 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago. I repeated that test on the exact same course, similar conditions, and I'm this much further in front, or I'm similar, or I've actually gone backwards. It gives you an understanding of how your training is actually improving, not really doing anything on maintaining, and then maybe even being a detriment to your performance. Overall, do you need a bit of extra recovery? All of these things you can start to benchmark against that baseline measure. So you could be as simple as, I'm going to run a specific loop around the streets, or I'm going to run from point A to point B, pick out wherever you want to run between. And then as long as you repeat that and be consistent and be exactly the same in terms of that path that you followed when you repeat the test, gives you somewhere to compare to, like I said, to see if the actual training is working in the first place. But something I definitely do is establish a baseline. You know where you're at throughout your program. And the last one is a bit of a practical advice on, if you are a beginner runner, really my ideal split in the week would be some sort of high intensity and some sort of longer, slower stuff. And why I say this split is because it gives you, one, a bit of variety. So it gives you a bit of a taste for some different types of training. You can do some high intensity intervals where you start to run faster. The benefit of doing that is going to improve you from an economy perspective. It's going to get you tolerating those higher loads at higher speeds a little bit better. The benefit of the longer, slower is going to build your aerobic capacity, your ability to run for long periods of time. But it's the type of thing, it mixes up your training. Going out and doing the same pace all the time can be really monotonous, and that's where a lot of people start to fall out of love with running. Whereas if we mix it up and provide some bit of variety in the week, you don't necessarily have to do the same thing week in, week out. You might do intervals on a Tuesday every week, but each week you change the type of session you do. That is absolutely fine. If you're a beginner amateur runner and you're just running for the fun of it and you're running for a bit of fitness, by mixing it up, you're going to have a better time at it. But having a split in the week of some longer, slow and some higher intensity, and a perfect thing might be if you want to run 4 times a week, do 2 high intensity, do 2 long slow, and alternate them. 1 interval session, 1 longer slower session, 1 interval session, 1 longer slower session. And when I mean longer slow, it might only be 40 minutes or 30 minutes is your long slow. You're just doing a cruisy, comfortable intensity. But having that split in intensity is going to, 1, challenge you physiologically from a number of different aspects, tolerate some higher intensities, help you build some speed into running if that's a thing for you, if you want to improve your performance. But also, it's just going to keep the week interesting. You're probably going to enjoy your running a little bit more when you challenge yourself in different ways and there's more stimulus going on throughout the week. So really, as a bit of a summary, they're the 5 key things I would be looking at. They're quite simple. I'm not overcomplicating things at all here, and I'm not talking in depth. And really, the point of this is running doesn't have to be super complex at the end of the day, particularly if you're a beginner. Keep it really simple. Make sure you're having fun with it, because more than anything, you're going to get the most out of it if you are having fun with it and you're enjoying it. And that's why things like the variety, or having a baseline to challenge yourself, setting goals, things like that can all be really useful. These 5 tips hopefully will get you right on a really good path to be able to improve your running, build into running if you're brand new and you haven't done anything before, but then set you up long term to be able to have a really long, successful ability to run over a long period of time, particularly as you get older as well. If you do have any questions about anything I've covered today, please leave them in the comments down below. How have you gone? What are some of the strategies you've used if you've gone from a beginner runner into an intermediate or an advanced runner now? Think back to when you were a beginner. What are the mistakes you made, or what are the things you got right? Let me know down in the comments below, because it's going to help me sort of work out some different things going on. But then also it's going to help other people sort of learn from your stories as well about what works and what doesn't. Happy to hear your comments and thoughts down below as always. Make sure you do hit that big subscribe button if you've been enjoying the videos to keep supporting the channel. Share it with someone you might think get something out of it. And otherwise, we'll see you in the next one.